Hello, video type vlog. I have decided I'm going to start doing some vlogs. It's all very amateur right now. The camera is precariously balanced on the top of a wafer-thin monitor. Fortunately, I don't live in an earthquake zone, so there's not much chance that an earthquake's going to knock the camera over. But yeah, very precarious stuff right now. So, vlog number one, then I guess. I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk briefly Alan Watts, um, and then there's going to be a little piece about a little bit of memory from my past compared with present day, which involves TV and radio stations and the differences between the sort of the 1980s era and present day. So Alan Watts, very white. Out of all the people that I've listened to so far in life, Alan Watts, probably the wisest person I've heard so far. Also a very wise decision was he recorded like speeches, seminars, whatever it was he was doing. So he died in 1973. And I believe in about 4 years' time we're going to be the 50th anniversary of his death. So I'm hoping that 50th anniversary of Alan Watts' death, that there will be at least something in the mainstream directing people to his audio video. So the great thing about preserving audio and video, he died in 1973, but lots and lots of people today are still listening to his audio video clips, speeches. The internet is absolutely filled with Alan Watts material, and I think that's great, because otherwise without that he would have been quickly forgotten about, because he wrote a lot of books, but the modern day society we're living in today of 2019 going into 2020, not many people read books anymore. Without the preservation of the audio and the video, I think Alan Watts would have been quickly forgotten beyond 1973. That's the first point that I want to make. And of course, nowadays in modern day society, people have got no excuse, because everyone's got a phone, everyone's got a recording device. As far as I'm concerned, why not? Why aren't people making vlogs daily, weekly, whatever? You have an opportunity to share your thoughts and opinions about things and life and your view of reality, whatever. And you've got the opportunity to make a permanent recording of that, and maybe, as with Alan Watts, in many years to come, people might still be listening to what you have to say, even long after you have passed from this mortal coil. So the first point I was going to make was Alan Watts. Now I'll move on to my second point. I'm going to talk about, well, this is a trip down memory lane, really, which I've been having here. It's early hours of the morning. It's about 0 degrees outside, and I'm just had a drink or two. Trip down memory lane, and I was thinking about the difference between, the radio and TV scheduling and sort of mainstream radio television, which plays a far less important role nowadays, I believe, compared to how it used to. I've got memories, my memories of the as a child. So I'm going way back, 1980s. There were three channels to choose from: BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. That was it. No Freeview, no Sky, no cable, no Netflix, no Amazon Prime. So so I was having this trip down memory lane, and I was remembering, back in the day when it was just three terrestrial channels: BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. When it got to about midnight, like for example, you might have been watching BBC One, you were laying in bed, it got to midnight, and some person, male or female or whatever, would come up with a voiceover, and there would be a commentator who would come on and say, we finished the programming for today. So programming is very interesting language, of course, when it comes to talking about television. Some people would say programming, as in programming people's brains. It's very appropriate to call them programs. A person would come on and say, our programming is done for the day. Enjoy your night, and we'll see you in the morning. Good night. And then there will be a brief play of the national anthem, and then the test card would come up on the screen with a very high-pitched audio noise, which presumably was there for people who had fallen asleep on the sofa or the armchair. As a wake up, turn your telly off. This was because this was back in the days of the old valve, old-fashioned, heavy, break your toe if you dropped it on your foot television sets that were a fire hazard. So you couldn't really have people leaving their TVs on all night. So this high-pitched sound came with the test card to wake up anybody who had fallen asleep. Whoa! My my microphone, external microphone, just knocked it over. Yes. So I remember that, and there was only the three terrestrial channels, and all three terrestrial channels were closed down overnight. And it made me remember of other things as well, like it's just the TV channels, but it was radio stations. I remember when as a kid, when I first got into listening to BBC Radio 1 for the first time. This was way back. This was even before they went to FM stereo. So Radio 1 broadcasted on the old analog, where you had to tune the dial, AM radio. And they were closed down overnight as well. I can remember specifically waking up before 5 o'clock in the morning. When I was just getting into listening to Radio 1 for the first time. There'd be a series of beep noises on the frequency on the radio. There'd be nothing there. There'd be a series of beeps leading up to, it used to be 5 a.m., 5 o'clock in the morning, when they would start their broadcast for the day. So I used to just lay in bed and listen for a while in the morning before I get up for breakfast. Back in those days. But it made me realise, how things have changed since the early 1980s. As what we got nowadays is a much more bigger choice of channels, and those channels are broadcast 24/7, 24 hours a day. And then I was thinking about ITV in recent years. What have they put on there? Like the sort of the time of hour that I'm recording this right now, about 2 a.m. ish. Over the years, they put on. They used to put on old repeats of Jeremy Kyle's show, which is now a cancelled show, controversial reasons. Then for a while they were showing a gambling show. You know, 2 a.m. on a Monday morning, nothing like let's get people let's get people into the sordid world of gambling, shall we? And they made the wise decision to get rid of that. So out of interest, I was like this morning, flick it. What are they showing now at this hour on ITV? And now, of course, it's a shopping channel. But probably better than dragging people into the sordid world of gambling addiction, but shopping channel. I'm not so sure that that's an improvement from the days of when they used to shut down at night. Little test card on the screen and a bit of pleasant music to listen to, compared to with what they're showing now. I'm not so sure that it's that much of an improvement. But the changes in society that's happened from the 1980s to 2019, I think it got me thinking about a lot of things. Like back then, nearly knocked the microphone over again. Back then, it was, I think there was an assumption that a lot of people went to sleep by midnight and woke up again about 7 a.m.-ish. Because you had all the TV, the few TV and radio stations that were available back then would close down during the overnight period. So this is long before the days of the internet and Netflix and all that stuff, social media, and the only people who would really be up at night, I don't know, bakers who had to get an early start for getting the bread in the oven or whatever, postal workers having to start early, the early shift, and the milk float. What happened to the milk float people? Do you remember? You remember some person would go around in a milk float back in the 1980s, and they were specifically designed to be quiet. They'd make a little sort of humming noise, no sort of loud engines or anything. So these little lightweight milk floats that made a humming noise when they were moving around. So you had the guy going around delivering people's milk bottles to their doorsteps, so that when people got up at just after 7 a.m. or whatever, they would just go to their doorstep and they would pick up the milk bottles ready for their breakfast. So what happened to all of that? They've done away with all of that, because I don't see it happening now. And yeah, so I was just having a trip down memory lane. I was comparing certain things that happened in the 1980s compared with now, 2019, and just noticing the changes that have happened. And yeah, that just about wraps it up, I think, for my first vlog. I've got 15 minutes on the clock, and I'm going to see where this goes. And like, I want to try and use these vlogs for these types of talky bits, kind of musings and shooting the breeze, and there could be some conversations about nature of reality and more deeper level stuff. But I'm going to keep it at this level for the first one. I don't want to get too deep for the first one. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and see you later.